Hey everybody, I am DJ Riley and I am one of the hosts from Boys on the Bench, and alongside me is my brother Dalton Riley and lifelong friend Nathan Eastwood. Now, in this episode, what we're going to be doing, we have the Super Bowl coming up this weekend, and I am so excited. I'm happy it's here. Not the matchup that I necessarily wanted to see. There's probably the two least favorite teams that I wanted to see in the Super Bowl, but it's the Super Bowl. At the end of the day, I'm happy. There's plenty of good picks to be making, and that's what we will be doing, are dropping our 6 top picks for these Super Bowl matchups, giving you our 2 top picks for each of these, combining them together and making a 6-leg parlay on this, trying to hit that 25 times multiplier on PrizePicks. So with all of that said, let's go ahead and jump into these first set of picks. And Nathan, I'm going to kick it to you. Who are your top 2 picks for these Super Bowl matchups?
Yeah, going right into it, baby. Super Bowl weekend. We're all excited. Like DJ said, though, we are not happy about the two teams playing in the Super Bowl. Just hate to see it. But the first pick that I'm going to go with Isaiah Pacheco for over 67 and a half yards. And I'm going to tell you why. When the 49ers played the Lions had 86 rushing yards in the first quarter. Like I know some of that came from the big run on the end around from Jameson or Williams, but after the first quarter, they still had 182 rushing yards on 29 attempts. The Lions were averaging 6.3 yards per carry. The 49ers struggled with stopping the run against the Detroit Lions. I believe that the Chiefs, their pass game has struggled all year. We have seen that with the amount of drops that the receivers have had, and it's just been it's hard to come by, right? For this year for the Chiefs is if it's finding your go-to guy who is going to be reliable at catching the football. We've even seen Kelsey have a couple of drops that you usually don't see him drop the football. So if I'm going to go with that, I'm going to go with Pacheco over 67 and a half rushing yards because I really feel like that he can have a big game against the 49ers. I believe that the Chiefs offensive line is better than Detroit's. So if Detroit was able to control the run game, which I feel like they were a lot in that football game because they did run for 182 yards. I believe that Pacheco can go over 67 and a half rushing yards. To me, that is a great bet, especially given the fact of what the Lions were able to do against the 49ers in their rushing game. With that being said, let's get into my next pick. My next pick, I'm going to go with Deebo Samuel at 0.5 rush plus receiving touchdown. If you've been following football, which probably most of y'all have, Deebo Samuel is a trash talker, and he lately has been able to back it up. I believe that he is kind of he's the guy that kind of energizes that offense a little bit. He's their juice. He juices it up a little bit. I know they still have McCaffrey and Kittle and Ayuk, but you always have that one guy that just brings that extra juice to your offense, and I believe that's Deebo. And he's just been able to do what the 49ers have been asked him to all year. Kyle Shanahan's the type of the guy that if you're able to do those things, he's going to try to get you involved in a touchdown or some play calls. So I really feel like that's a no brainer. I believe he did have one against the Lions, a touchdown. So I feel like Debo will get a touchdown in the Super Bowl game just because he's a guy who brings the juice to that offense. He's just that extra umph. So those are my 2 picks for this. I'm really excited about these two. I'm excited for Super Bowl Sunday and ready to see what we got. But with that being said, we're going to kick it over to Dalton and see what 2 picks that he's got for us tonight.
All right, thank you, Nathan. So, for the first player prop bet on my list for Super Bowl 58 is a fascinating one, and honestly, it has to be my favorite, and that is Brock Purdy going under 31 and a half pass attempts. Now, Purdy has been relatively conservative with his arm this season, throwing for over 32 pass attempts just twice in the past 10 games. And here's a stat that'll probably make you raise some eyebrows. But throughout the entire 2023 season, Purdy has averaged just 27.8 pass attempts per game, only exceeding today's line 3 times in the last 18 games. So for those who love percentages, that's roughly 17% of the time. Now, if let's take a look at the defense side of the ball for the Kansas City Chiefs. They have been an absolute juggernaut this season, ranking 4th in passing yards allowed and 10th in pass attempts faced, with an average of 32.71 per game. So to me, Purdy's propensity for going under this line, to me, aligns well with the Chiefs' defensive record, considering they have been an absolute just no fly zone. They have, honestly, just surprising a lot of people in the NFL this year. So to me, it just makes sense that Purdy's going to have, fewer pass attempts this game, as they're probably going to try to rely more on Christian McCaffrey's legs. So, also turning to the analytics from Daily Grind Fantasy, they've pegged this bet with a 52.6% chance of hitting, with an average juice of minus 132 across all major sports books. Ideally, we'd like to see this probability closer to 54%, but given the matchup and the history of Purdy's pass attempts, I'm kind of liking the odds on this one. Now, I'm going to move on swiftly to my next pick, and we're staying with the 49ers, but this time I'm going to flip to the defensive side of the ball. Here, I'm eyeing Dre Greenlaw to go under 8.5 tackles plus assists. Greenlaw's performance has been a bit more hit or miss this season, with him topping this number twice in the last 5 games, 4 times in the last 10, and 6 in his 15 total games played this season. That's roughly 40% of the time. Also, the folks at Daily Grind Fantasy are slightly more optimistic about this one, assigning a 53.37% chance of hitting the under, with the average juice sitting at minus 137. So this is pretty close to that 54% benchmark that we often look for. But so to me, that's close enough to grab my attention. And so what's the rationale here? Despite the Chiefs wide receiver issues, I'm betting on them to leverage their MVP caliber quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, and to keep the ball airborne. So this strategy should theoretically limit Greenlaw's tackle opportunities, especially in the run game, as the 49ers brace themselves for just as they try to stop the pass. So that's it for my 2 picks. I hope these picks give you the edge in your Super Bowl 58 wager. So now I'm going to go ahead and pass this off to DJ for his 2 picks in the Super Bowl matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. So I get the pleasure of kind of putting the final 2 picks together for this 6-leg parlay. And the first one that I have here is Rashee Rice going over 67.5 receiving yards. So no head-to-head history versus the San Francisco 49ers this season. So if we look at what we're getting in terms of positive EV from Daily Grind Fantasy, they're essentially giving us a 50-50 split with a 50.1% chance of hitting, with an average juice of minus 118. So now if you're new to Daily Grind Fantasy and trying to understand what you need to look for, that ideal number that you want to look for in terms of positive EV is a 54 and above percent chance of hitting. Well, we're split right down the middle. Most books are sitting somewhere on that 67.5, where we have that even split like I'm referencing. So looking at recent performances and how he's done in his last 5 and last 10, he has hit 2 out of his last 5 and 5 out of his last 10. Now, where I really like him in this matchup is he comes into this game as the most targeted wide receiver for this Kansas City Chiefs team, and is coming off of a performance versus the Baltimore Ravens where he saw 9 additional targets. Not a ton of receiving yards, where we saw him finish that game with only 46. So we are going for his receiving yards over here. However, if we look at the matchups versus San Francisco, they currently allow the 3rd most passing attempts in all of the NFL. Also, alongside, they allow the least amount of rushing attempts. That is the way to beat this San Francisco team, is through the air, which, again, if Rashee Rice is the leading wide receiver for this Kansas City Chiefs team, I feel like that's a fairly low number, considering that their last 2 matchups in these 2 playoff games that the San Francisco 49ers have played this year, the top wide receiver options have both gone for 80 plus. Amon-Ra St. Brown in the conference championship game this last 2 weeks ago, but then also Romeo Doubs going for 80 plus in that divisional round as well. So really see Rashee Rice going over that 67.5 receiving yards in this matchup versus the San Francisco 49ers. Now, looking at the next bet that I have here, that's Christian McCaffrey going over 5 receptions versus this Chiefs team. Again, no head-to-head history this season, and if we're looking at what Daily Grind Fantasy is giving us, they're only giving us a 47.7% chance of hitting with an average juice of minus 105. So we're really not getting any positive odds. We can see that most books are offering this at 4.5. Well, what PrizePicks has done is they've bumped that up to 5. So we're not getting really good odds, but I still really like this play for him. If we look at recent performances, he's hit this over in 2 out of his last 5, with one of those games being hooks. And then he's also hit this in 3 out of his last 10, but 3 of those have been hooks. So he's very close. He at least pushes them if need be, and then he gets very close in other ones. So right now, though, where I like him in this matchup, Kansas City has been a very dominant defense versus both pass and the rush, but they've struggled to stop running backs in the receiving game. 8 out of their last 10 running backs have all hit their overs on their receptions line. On the other hand, only 5 out of their last 20 wide receivers have hit their over on the receptions line. So they've done an excellent job of shutting down the wide receiver position in terms of receiving, but not so good versus the running back position, where I see Christian McCaffrey excelling. So love him in this matchup, going over 5 receptions. So anyways, guys, these are our top 6 picks that we have for you in these Super Bowl matchups. Coming into this, I love all of these picks. Let us know what you like in the comments, whether you're tailing any of these, whether you're fading any of these. We want to know. Maybe there's a bet that we missed out on, and you just cannot believe that we missed out on that bet. Drop that in the comments below. I'll be making more prize picks soon, and I definitely want to do some more research on what you're thinking as well. So drop those comments below. Also, make sure you're subscribing to this channel, hitting that notification bell, and getting notified anytime these videos are dropping, because they are coming out daily, and I do not want y'all to miss out on them. Dalton's also on a little bit of a heater here, betting on the NBA. So make sure y'all are checking out that Twitter profile, which is also linked in the description below, because all of those picks are posted there 100% free. Don't feel like you have to pay for them. It's stress-free there. We're just trying to throw out some green slips for y'all to follow along with. That's as simple as that. Anyways, thank y'all so much for listening to this episode. Best of luck to y'all, and let's have a good Super Bowl. It may not be the matchup we all wanted, but hopefully it's a good game. Maybe both teams will lose.
And while you're at it, go ahead and fill up your solo cup and tip your hat and raise your glass to Toby Keith, brother. Amen.
Amen.
And if your team loses, at least you get to see Taylor Swift the Super Bowl.
Oh, God.
So
On that note, we'll see y'all next time.
Ride the bench.
Ride the bench.